Does the Serbian government allow you to operate freely, or does it bring pressure to bear upon you?
Yeah, when we analyze the doings of our governments, not just in Serbia but also in the region, and we're really monitoring it a bit wider, we can see three ways of addressing civil society. One is protection of the civil society, human rights defenders, how much protection they get for the threats that they receive, not only in Serbia but also in other countries. Physical threats, others, and maybe we can single out some other countries that really have exaggerated in not responding to the things that are happening to civil society.
Can you give us an example?
Such as Azerbaijan and many others. Issues that we deal with is impunity of those who are sending those messages, who are threatening civil society, and this comes also around the region. Second issue that we can raise is perception of the civil society, perception of the human rights defenders. How much of the support are the governments giving to those who are defending human rights? It is important to give them direct support, to lean on their experience, on the experience that civil society has in providing services on the ground, in providing free legal aid like UCOM, an organization that I'm coming from, is dealing with. And some of the good models that are existing on the ground, they're all undermined. We all live in the societies that came out of the war. If you speak about Western Balkans in the 90s, we used to be traitors in the 90s. This picture is not the one changed by any of the governments in the meantime. So they are living in that limbo where civil society is portrayed as the one not working in the interest of the societies in Serbia, in Croatia, in Bosnia, and Macedonia, and other countries. And the third issue is financial and also sustainability of civil society that has to be tackled by other players. EU is, as we heard, quite a lot working on these issues, supporting the initiatives coming from the ground, and really supporting it both on a declarative level, also on a political level, and many others. But the governments are not responding to that. They're not the ones giving to genuine civil society support for their work. They don't see us as allies still. We work together on some of the issues, EU enlargement, where we are asked for our opinion, and we get to get involved in the discussion. But it is not a direct support. We don't feel it still.
Anton, which government in your region, or what's an example of a particularly egregious example of a government cracking down on civil society that you personally feel most concerned about?
We can divide the pressure from state actors and non-state actors. In some of the countries, governments are allowing non-state actors to attack and to mention.
Like where?
Also in Serbia, we have also some of the media that are really speaking about Russian model of dealing with civil society once in a year, once in 6 months, really reminding us of what can happen to civil society if any of those laws are adopted.
So do you mean media being used as a mouthpiece for
yes,
authoritarian government?
To keep the picture of civil society as not the one linked with the society and with the citizens. So we need to really change the rhetorics to see what the civil society is dealing with on the ground, how much support we're giving in each of the society, in each of the cities, and on each of the levels that where citizens are receiving direct support.
Are there any encouraging examples in your region?
Well, there is a cooperation between the civil society organizations in the region. There are also dialogue with some of the states. In Serbia also we have a dialogue on some of the laws that are being adopted. And some of the things are moving. EU could be also leverage for us, so I'm a bit more focused in our research on other countries that don't have this EU perspective and do not lean to the high standards of European Union. But it is equally important to support them, to have a cooperation between civil society organizations. In Belgrade, we formed a Human Rights House that consists of great NGOs that were dealing with that for 20 years. There are human rights houses around the region, and that kind of support, giving them the space, I mean, for the space that's being shrinking at the moment for civil society is very, very important.
Here at the United Nations, even, it's difficult, isn't it, for some civil society groups to get their voices heard?
Yes, indeed, it is. Actually, in some places it's very, very hard. And I think what we can do to change it, first of all, is the attitude of the United Nations and its agencies have to change. I think it's quite a lot of them are still stuck in the 20th century, and the focus of the state as the primary and only vehicle for diplomacy and for activism and work around human rights. So I think one of the first things we've got to do is begin inculcating a new sense that the world is no longer just the state parties. It's also civil society. It's also corporates, whether we like them or not, that are part of the new makeup that's there in this world. So that's the first thing. And to that extent, I think there's some agencies that have begun to get it. I think UNEP, the United Nations Environmental Programme, has begun to understand it and began trying to expand the space for civil society within its operations.
Do you think because so many environmental activists around the world have been under threat?
Well, I think it's because a lot of the work on environmental issues have been led by civil society. I mean, that's a very simple thing. And so the program has begun to change. But on the other hand, we've got agencies like the UNDP that's having a really difficult time understanding that civil society's role can be challenging the state. And so you find that when you start challenging the state and you're working with UNDP, they start trying to hold you back. So UNDP is still stuck in the old days. And in fact, I think one of the biggest mistakes we ever make around the whole international system is trying to use UNDP as a vehicle to expand civil society space, to work on human rights through UNDP, to work on governance and
when it just doesn't work at all.
They just don't know how to do that. They need to keep doing water, sanitation, malaria. That's fine. On these issues of human rights, democracy, and stuff, please get UNDP out of it. The second thing,
Did you hear that, UNDP?
The second thing I want to say is that also there's this thing called the NGO committee of ECOSOC, which is the one that gives accreditation for NGOs to be able to speak and participate.
And that's very fraught.
And that one is in trouble right now. And partly it's in trouble because some states are simply refusing to move with the times. The International Dalit Solidarity Network.
Which ones?
I'm coming to that. I will give a concrete example. The IDSN, International Dalit Solidarity Network, applied for accreditation in 2008. It still hasn't got it because it has received 75 questions from one country, India.
Why is that so sensitive, that particular NGO?
I have no idea, because actually India theoretically is a supporter of Dalit improving the lot of the Dalit people. When you look at the policy papers, the law in India, but when it comes to accrediting organizations that want to work on Dalit issues, India is obstructing them. So that's become a big issue as well. The third thing is reprisals, and when people come to UN to speak, sometimes they get into trouble. And I have a particular example of a man called Saeed Jadad of Oman, who I met when I was on mission to Oman, and is now in jail, has been going in and out of jail, simply because he participated and worked with me on my mission. And so there's stuff like that that becomes very irritating. And the fourth thing...
What did he speak out about?
Well, he was telling me about the conditions and the issues that were going on. But he also was quite outspoken and was quite clear and came out to meet me. And I think he became an example to be used by the state as in terms of discouraging working with UN agencies. The fourth thing is a question about official visits. Now, the UN human rights mechanisms depend upon states inviting special rapporteurs to visit. In fact, I'm here in the United States actually right now because I'm on mission to the United States, invited by the government of the USA. But so many states just simply don't invite special rapporteurs. So we don't have an opportunity to work with the state and work with people.
You can't go unless you're invited.
You cannot go in and have an official visit. You can go in and give a lecture. But when some states just don't invite you, and many of them just keep quiet. You ask them for invitations, you try and meet them, they just keep quiet. And so it becomes very, very difficult. So I think there's certain ways in which you can spread human rights, you can spread the role of civil society, and pretty easily, actually, if there's willingness to be able to move the agenda forward.